What's up, guys? Behind me we have a 2017 Nissan GT-R Premium, and this one has a little bit of a story. You see, this car belongs to a friend of a friend, and let's say it was more car than he could handle, and this car met its demise. But thankfully, he knows someone who knows me, and I know things. Sort of. I've never actually rebuilt a Nissan. I've never even worked on a Nissan, but I know my way around a wrench and I know my way around a shop. So I told him, hey, I can take this thing in and rebuild it for you at a fraction of the cost of what you got quoted. Looking at this car right away, you would assume the damage is pretty severe, but as far as accidents goes, this guy got super lucky. He got quoted about $35,000 to fix this from an auto body shop, out of pocket. He doesn't really want to mess up the title or whatever. If you're watching this video and you're the next buyer, you know, but no one else does. So we're gonna go ahead and fix this thing for a fraction of the cost. I'm gonna be listing all the parts that we're gonna be using. But before we can even start putting new parts on, we gotta take old parts off and assess exactly what parts need to be fixed and where we kind of go from point A to point B. So let's go ahead and get started with taking off parts, starting with the fenders. Obviously the bumper just fell off, and taking off the hood. When I initially saw this car in pictures, I really thought, hey man, you're gonna need a frame machine. This car is gonna be pretty bad. I honestly didn't really even think about taking on a rebuild of this nature. But after I got into a little bit, we took some body parts off, and it's safe to say this guy should go buy a lottery ticket because he's super lucked out on this. I'll show you guys exactly why. I'm gonna make sure I add an inner fender liner to the list of things to buy. We're gonna go ahead and remove this out of the way, and then we'll be able to get into there without being bothered by that being in the way. So let's get this off, and then we'll see exactly what we need to do to get that inner and outer tie rod off. All right, now that we have some room to work in, let's go ahead and get the outer tie rod out. Oh, I should have just tapped on my freaking. So as you guys can tell, I just sheared right off. Inner tie rod snapped off. Normally this is where the two conjoin here, but there's no way to just replace the outer one. Got to do the inner one now, and I have no idea how to get to that, first of all. So I'm going to start by taking the boot off, and then we'll kind of assess, reverse engineer our way into getting that off and putting the new one in there. Okay, so got that off. Holy shit. So the ball that's in the actual receiver bent. That looks like damage there. I'd assume it's not supposed to look like this. So as you can tell, pretty nasty angle there. We have the inner tie rod right here, which thankfully it comes with a new locking pin ring, or locking ring, and a new wire, because I totally messed up those. So new wire, new pin, and this right here is what we're looking at. So definitely has an angle. The old one definitely got super beat up. Thankfully shows me, however, there's a locking nut that goes into the collar of the screw and or the male end. So this makes it a lot easier. In my mind, I thought I was gonna have to replace this whole shaboing boing bing bong, but it looks like this piece and this head where it swivels is its own thing. So got to get this locking collar pin out, and then we can undo this in theory. So let's see if my theory is correct, and if that's the case, this is actually pretty simple. So let's go ahead and get the old one out, and then see if we can put the new one in. That makes sense. So let's do that. So So actually, in my mind, this was gonna be the hardest part of this whole thing because I've never done it before. This was actually super simple, and as you can tell here, definitely some damage to the inner tie rod, to say the least. We have a bent ball joint here, and you can actually see the indentation where it smashed the shoot out of the freaking housing. I thought there was gonna be a locking pin in here. There's actually not. Maybe it's just for aeration for the lubricant inside of the ball joint. But this is our old one. This is our new one. Looks like the gasket that's holding this actual seal is okay in there, so we're not gonna replace that. I'm gonna go ahead and put this in there. I'm gonna inspect the actual steering rack. I don't see why it would be damaged. It seemed like this took the brunt of the force anyways. Threads on this one are fine. If there was any damage to the steering rack, I'd assume these threads would be pulled, or some sort of damage, because this is probably the weakest link of the whole assembly or the conjoining part. Obviously this took the brunt of the force, so I'm gonna inspect that real quick. If everything's good, I'm just gonna go and slap the new one in, and then that'll be our only mechanical as far as like running and driving goes. Obviously there's gonna be faults because of the wiring. Literally not even counter threaded, just straight up threads in there. I busted out my massive crescent wrench thinking it was gonna be tight on there. In reality, if I have to just measure according to what I think, I'd probably say that thing's like 20 pounds. Get it on there, and it doesn't really have much of anywhere to go. All right guys, inner tie rod is super simple. Everything is on there. That took me longer than putting in the actual inner damn tie rod. Twisting that up sucked, but drop the lower panel here, and then you can kind of get your way in between the A-arm and the actual frame. Boot is back on. Let's get the outer tie rod on. Technically, mechanically, this car will be sound. So let's put this on here. Not gonna be sure about the spec or how far in it has to go. We'll worry about that at the alignment, but let's get this outer tie rod on. All right guys, so unfortunately, while putting the outer tie rod on, I realized there's a counter stop nut, or whatever it's called, lockout nut. There's a lockout nut that goes here that kind of prevents us from going any further. So I am gonna have to pick up one of these. Kind of sucks, but I don't know if you guys can tell, the thing's super smashed in there. I'm sure the threads are probably messed up. One way to find it. I took the old nut off of the old inner tie rod. It looks fine to me. I'm gonna just reuse this one. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll be done with this. With our new inner and tie rod on there, we officially have control of our driver's side wheel again. Well, wheel's here, but you know what I mean. I put a ballpark where the gap of the threads was on the old one, so I'm sure it'll all get dialed in when it goes for an alignment. The next step we have to address is going to be the bumper. Kind of opted for a cheaper one, but we can Frankenstein the old grill pieces from the old one that are OEM and kind of make this one look a little bit decent. As you guys can tell, the piece that came on this one is chrome. You can kind of tell the difference in sheen there. This is more of a satin finish. We also have our OEM badges here, and then our OEM sensors, which are not cut out in the original bumper. So I'm gonna send off the bumper with my paint guy, and he said he can kind of sort it all out, get the sensors in there. This is a two-tone paint job, so this isn't a separate piece, which kind of sucks because it would have been nice to just take these centers out and clip it into the other one and have it painted a single color, but it does have to get masked off and painted two colors, the gray and the pearl white. So honestly guys, until this radiator support is here, we cannot continue. So as far as this video goes, thank you guys for watching. Make sure you guys subscribe. This car, we actually ended up doing carbon hood and carbon fenders. So we're only painting the front bumper, so it'll look a little bit cooler than factory. Trying to convince this guy to kind of powder coat the wheels. But without further ado, this is the end of this video. Make sure you guys like, subscribe. Please show your support, give me a comment. On the next video, we'll be managing the radiator support and then hopefully the wiring and then putting some panels back on this car. Realistically, if I had all the parts here, this would probably take me a full work day. I could probably have this thing knocked out by tonight if all the parts were here, but that's not the case. So more videos to come. Hopefully this guy also does some tuning parts. If you guys like this video, leave a comment, subscribe, like, and see you on the next one. Peace.